Hi, Buttercup. How's it hanging? Good? Bad? In the middle? You don't know what I'm talking about? In this context, I don't know either at this point, but thank you for joining me on my book review for We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. I got this copy from Patrick during Christmas season. Let me just show you a little closer. I love this cover. And I love that it's decked edges. It gives a whimsically creepy vibe. And it definitely works for the story. This is my first ever book of Shirley Jackson, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And I want to continue reading her other books as well, and short stories. I actually read a recent short story from her, The Lottery, right after this. Finishing this book, loved it as well. It was like a little too short. I wanted more. Anyway, we are following the main character in a very unreliable way. Mary Catherine, or Mary Cat. I'm probably going to just say her nickname Mary Cat because that's what's used most often and that's how I remember her as. And we follow her, of course, who's a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, not gonna lie here, and then also her sister, and then her uncle. And you know, things happened about 6 years ago during a family dinner. Everyone else was poisoned and they died. Just straight up, that's what happened. But they are the 3 survivors. This book, it might be considered a novella, maybe now and even back then when it was published in the 60s, not 100% sure. But it's about 147 pages, and I think that is a good length because why did I give it only 4 stars? Well, okay. With many classics, and this is a horror classic, there are some weird writing choices that it's just common. One of them being huge blocks of texts. And in many of these cases, it took either half of the page or a full page, and it's just a whole paragraph. I'm not into that. Also, the lack of periods. Wow. I'm just telling you. Now, there is a trick to writing, which is used fairly often. I don't know if you need to do this anymore, but this is a choice that writers make where if you have someone that's unreliable and or cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, because Mary Cat's a little cuckoo. Oh, she's not all there. Okay? Not all there. What you can do to signal that the inner monologue and just the thought process overall is not stable is that you don't use periods and you have very long run-on sentences, or you have a lot of commas, so then like you pause for like half a second and then you keep going, and you can even kind of hear that in people that are either talking too much or too fast because they're excited or upset, or you can see that in people that are a little bit unstable and they're kind of going on a rant. So it does happen in real life. I did that a lot when I was younger because I was a little bit unstable and I needed to just say everything out loud, or else like I felt like I was going crazy. And I'm sure that was kind of odd to listen to. So I get what Shirley Jackson was going for. I've read it in the past. I have personally experienced it. I have seen others doing the same. So I get the trick. However, I need periods, okay? Like, I need to breathe. And even me reading in my head, I need a breath. I need a break. My brain needs a break. And there was also just, you know, wording and phrasing choices where you can tell that she's unreliable because there's just something off about the word choice. And so, like, for example, page 78, This is a huge block of text, I'm sorry, but I'm going to give you the context of what I'm talking about if you don't know what I'm talking about. I cannot think why it seemed to me that I might simply ask Charles to go away. A little wordy, okay? Perhaps I thought that he had to be asked politely just once. Perhaps the idea of going away had just not come into his mind and it was necessary to put it there. I decided that asking Charles to go away was the next thing to do. Before, he was everywhere in the house and could never be eradicated. Already the house smelled of him, of his pipe and his shaving lotion, and the noise of him echoed in the rooms all day long. His pipe was sometimes on the kitchen table, and his gloves or his tobacco pouch or his constant boxes of matches were scattered through our rooms. Okay, there's a period there. Thank you. He walked into the village each afternoon and brought back newspapers, which he left lying anywhere, even in the kitchen where Constance might see them. A spark from his pipe had left a teeny burn on the rose brocade of our chair in the drawing room. Constance had not yet noticed it, and I thought not to tell her because I had hoped that the house injured would reject him by itself. Yeah. I think there were only like 4 periods in that huge block of text. That's what I'm talking about. That's why I'm sorry I can't give that 5 stars. Okay, but the story itself, it was great. Now let's go on to the story because I was a little negative Nelly in the beginning, but I just had to say it. Okay? I had to get it off my chest. I understand, yes I do, I understand the ending and the whole metaphor for Constance and Mary Cat not leaving the house, even though, trying not to spoil, the house is not good to live in anymore by the end of the novel. I'm just reading through this novel chapter by chapter, and I'm just like, oh, they should not be living together. They should not be living alone. They need to be in a mental institution. Mary Cat, obvious, she is not there. She has a lot of things going on and they turn violent. And yeah, could in some cases easily turn violent. Other cases she really draws it out and then she becomes violent and it's very fast. And you're like, oh shit, why did you just kill a bunch of snakes? Okay, and then it's just a 1 sentence thing. I don't like snakes, so I killed them all. And then I'm back at the kitchen with Constance, setting up the table. You're like, okay, sweetie, okay, it's not good for you. And then Constance, ma'am, you're pretending that everything is a-okay and that you're not living with we could very much argue, serial killer or just someone that kills a lot. Now, who is it? Well, there's only 3 left. Constance isn't the one, even though people were saying that it was, so Uncle or Mary Cat. You know what? It's kind of obvious within the first 2 chapters. Actually, for me, it was like the first few pages. Who killed the whole family? Constance is just, hanging about. She's chilling. And she is in a very odd ritual. You could say that she's in like a weird psychosis. Things aren't real except this particular ritual. And if things go out of the normal, because every single day is to the T scheduled, then things get, it's scary. But not too much, like a little bit, but not too much when their cousin Charles visits. But, let's just say shit hits the fan. The climax of the story, possibly, if you want to argue, it would be Charles coming to stay. And that's when Mary Cat becomes more violent and you see the real side of her. Now, she is the one that goes to the grocery store like once a week and gets library books in the town, and people hate the family, and so they harass her on all that stuff, but she can still do it. Constance has a fear of going out of the house, and so she can't, and then the uncle can't because he's sick. So yeah, the person who is not stable whatsoever is the one leaving the house and interacting with people. Not the best, okay? But like when Charles arrives, he's starting to try and do the things for them, but then he kind of gets sick of it because he thinks that like they're all messed up, and they are. Okay? But what went wrong for him is that he was trying to get Constance to put Mary Cat and the uncle in institutions, but she also needs to be in an institution. Like, she is totally accepting that this one, particular person who killed many, many people 6 years ago is totally fine. And that she also likes to kill animals, totally fine. And that she sets buildings on fire, totally fine. Like, there's other issues going on. And at the end, when it's Constance and Mary Cat, they both don't understand that the house that is like 90% burned to a crisp, it's not safe. Maybe 80%, but okay, there was a big fire. Who started the fire? Mary Cat. What? They're still there. And they have then barricaded the whole little area that was not burned, but they're like sleeping in the kitchen on the floor. Yeah, you're not all there. And I wish, which is not the point, and is not the point of this story, I wish someone, hypothetically, if this was in real life, that someone called someone, like they need a wellness check, and then they would see that they are not mentally or emotionally, and probably at a certain point, like a few months, maybe like 6 months in, they're not physically well either, because they are inhaling ash and just ickiness of what happens after a house is burned down, and then some of it falls as well, and there's just icky stuff. Like, they also, as far as I know, they're not bathing, and they refuse to go out to get anything, so they are wearing old clothes of their uncle, but that's going to run ragged as well. So they, after, I don't know, like year 3 or something, they might not have clothes. Like, they are just not leaving that messed up building. That signals they are not well enough to take care of themselves or others. And that's when someone needs to step in. No one stepped in. Truly, there were people that were trying, but they refused to go out of the house and let alone speak to anyone, and they barricaded themselves in this part of the house. And yeah, the people that were trying were just like, okay, we're done. Like, what we can't get in. I mean, I guess you could, but they didn't want to get into that house. And probably because of the whole, there was this dinner 6 years ago, and everyone but 3 people died. They're a little wary of interacting with this family, or what's left of the family, after a certain point. I get it, but then that's when you call in someone of authority. And I just feel so bad for Constance mainly, and then also the uncle, though he did pass in not a horrible way compared to everyone else. And in a way, I feel bad for Mary Cat, because she should not be on her own. She needs to be taken care of. She can barely take care of herself, and then by the end of the book, not really. I would argue not really. And there's only that support from Constance for so long, because she too is not well. And they both refuse to go outside. And if they are going outside, they go to the garden a little bit, you know, out in the back. But if they hear or see anything, they're running back in, they're barricading, and they just sit on the floor for hours and they don't say anything. And it's just sad. Should the person who killed basically the entire family be in prison? Yes. Yes. That was a lot of people. I hope that's not a hot take, but wow. It is definitely a subtle horror story. But if you read this carefully and you think it through, it's absolutely horrible and therefore horror, because technically this could happen. And actually it does happen. You have families that are very unstable and they hurt each other or they kill each other. Are they caught? Sometimes, and other times they're not. And so they just live in filth and sadness and violence and all of the negative words that you can think of, and it's just sad. And they cannot take care of themselves, and therefore someone has to step in that's an authority. Now you can debate on what that might be, but by the end of this book, living in their own filth, living mainly in the dark, except a few hours to do gardening. But how much food are they getting? Are they getting clean water? Where are they going to the bathroom? I don't know. It's not there. That's not a life. And I can see why this is a classic novel, because it really just made me think. It's still making me think. But I can't not think about this story and not feel a lot of emotions. And that is completely the point of novels. And I can see, like I said, why this is a classic, because you could just dive right into this book and write a bunch of peer reviews on this, and you can see it in different ways. And I appreciate that and all the effort and care and love, and probably tears and coffee that went into making this book. Thank you so much for watching my review on We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. I'll see you next time. Bye.